Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar using data to develop your EV business. I'm Magdalena Thurin. I'm the manager of the consulting business unit of GIREVE. And the idea behind the webinar that we are proposing to you today is to discuss how we can use data to develop our business. So basically, regardless of the sector of the industrial ecosystem of electric vehicle, of electromobility, whatever our problematics are, or whatever our challenges are, the way that we look at the data that we're collecting through the charging infrastructure can be a real asset to innovate and to increase the value that we can create through our activity. So basically what we're going to do this morning during the hour that we're going to spend together is that we're going to look at the context. I know that some of the participants are already very aware of the key stakes and the key trends of the industry. The idea will be to just remind what are the elements, the factors that are impacting the data that we are collecting at GIREVE, but also generally speaking for the other actors of our ecosystem. Then I will do a presentation of GIREVE, not an extensive presentation of our activity, but a presentation of the data that is available through our platform. And then that will be about the first half hour of the webinar. And then for the second half hour of the webinar, what we will do is that we'll do a workshop where we will go through two case studies, two real case studies of consulting services that we have provided to our client thanks to the analysis of our data. Okay, so let's start. Regarding the context, what we can say, and what is really a key element for us to consider is that the number of electric vehicles in circulation is growing. Not only it is growing, but the year 2021 was really a key milestone in the sense that electromobility is not something new, is not a new topic, but what is definitely new is that the growth of electric vehicles in the market was really exponential in 2021, and what we can already see is that the share of the electric vehicles in France in the global automobile park was 3% in 2020, and it jumped to 15% in 2021. So in the global objective to have 1 million electric vehicle in total in circulation, by the end of 2022, the idea is to have about 60% of 100% electric vehicle and 40% of hybrid vehicles. The figures that you are seeing here, they're from the website of the EVSE association. They concern the French market. However, because we thought it would be interesting to give you perspective about the French market, which is quite a dynamic market when it comes to electric vehicle. What we can say is that this trend is general. So what we observe on the French market, we also observe it on the other markets that are being dynamic when it comes to EV trends. In parallel of this trend, the number of gas vehicles is decreasing. So what you can see here is the split between electric vehicles, between hybrid vehicles and gas vehicles and diesel vehicles, which are really getting, like, their share in the market is going to decrease more and more rapidly, as there is two elements that are reinforcing this trend in France. If we look a little bit in details at these two trends, what we can see is that there is an incentive in the sense that the French government has put in place since 2017 different mechanisms to support individuals to transition to electric vehicle or to buy electric vehicles. So the amount of the incentive is in the range of 5,000 to 6,000 euros. So basically, if you switch from a thermic vehicle to an electric vehicle, you are eligible automatically to these incentives. Apart from this incentive mechanism, there is a coercive mechanism, which is the low emission zones. So what we are seeing now in France is the development of urban areas that will be only accessible to the less polluting vehicles. We can already see it in Paris, in Lyon, in Lille, and in Grenoble that are implementing these low emission zones. And we know that cities like Le Havre or other major cities in France are going to do the same. It's not going to be necessarily something simple to implement, in the sense that there is a social component to it. Despite the financial incentive to purchase an electric vehicle, the cost of an electric vehicle is still quite high if you compare to, for example, a second-hand thermal vehicle. So it's going to be something that is going to touch many different aspects in terms of implementation, but there is definitely a push toward the generalization of electric vehicles. What we can see correlatively in parallel to this trend is the trend of the increase of the number of charging points that are open to the public. Again, here we've really seen something quite interesting in 2021, in the sense that we've seen a key step for the industry. In the year 2021, we've observed an increase by 64% of the number of charging points that are open to the public in this year. We're seeing similar trends in countries like Norway, Germany, Belgium. So there are a lot of countries in Europe that are experiencing the same elements. If you combine the fact that there are more and more electric vehicles in circulation and there are more and more charging stations that are available to the public, you arrive to the what you have here, which is the boom of the number of charging stations in roaming. So I'm sure that most of you are familiar with what is roaming when it comes to electric vehicle. It's basically the fact to use charging infrastructures and to access it thanks to a pass or an application that is provided by another party. So it's exactly the same as when I withdraw money at an ATM with a credit card from a different bank, or when I use my phone in a different country, and that there is a roaming contract between my phone operator and the foreign phone operator, so that I can use my phone using the installation of the foreign phone operator. Here is the same to ensure that an individual can use a charging infrastructure even if he's not a registered client of the operator of the charging infrastructure. There is a need for a roaming contract, and that's by providing this service that GIREVE is at the crossroad, really at the heart of the ecosystem. So we're seeing this boom of the charging stations in roaming through our infrastructure, through our data platform. And what we are seeing, which is quite interesting, is that the most of the increase in number of charging stations can be observed for the fast charging and ultra fast charging infrastructures. This is quite logical in the sense that in the increase of the infrastructures that are available to the public, the most of the increase is for the fast charging and ultra fast charging infrastructures because they are more and more in demand. So the bulk of the demand today of the users is to have access to fast charging and plus infrastructures on in public areas. In France, this takes part in a context that is quite interesting, which is the context of the deployment plan for the French département. So we have in France about 100 départements, and since 2018, the movement started with the contract between the automotive sector, industrial sector, and the French government. So the objective that the French government gave to the automotive industry was to have this million electric or hybrid electric vehicles in circulation by 2022. To support this development, the government from 2020 started to work on what we call the 100,000 charging points plan, which objective was to have 100,000 charging points available to the public by 2022 to be able to answer the demand of the 1 million vehicles that we are expecting to see in circulation this year. In May 2021, the government published 2 decrees to give a framework for the establishment of the deployment plan, department by department. In January 2022, where were we in terms of development of this deployment plan? About 40% of the French collectivities have either finished their charging infrastructure deployment plan or they are starting to work on it. And about 60% of the other collectivities will start working on it by commissioning either consulting services or other to support this deployment plan. So there is a movement which is really multifaceted, which, if you combine all of these different factors, results in a very important increase of the data that is available. Because the more charging stations you have, the more charging sessions you have on these charging stations, the more data you have. So how is GIREVE positions on this economic situation, on this trend? What we are is basically the leading European platform for eMobility, in the sense that most of the actors of the sectors are connected through to the GIREVE platform. So we are an important business partner for everything that has to do with charging sessions and charging activity. The services that we provide to our clients touch different aspects. And the reason why I'm explaining this is to show you the type of data that we are collecting and the type of usage of data that can be inspirational for you for the development of your own business. There is a key component, which is cybersecurity. With the increase of charging sessions and with the increase of the use of the charging infrastructure, it will be important to know and to understand how we're going to ensure the security of the installations and the security and the protection of the privacy of the users. Everything that has to do with smart mobility is also a key area of work for us around MaaS, around smart charging, around smart city. We also offer, as I was mentioning, services for charging stations operators and eMobility service providers to connect, to establish roaming contracts, to make infrastructures available to the public. We provide general consulting services to help our clients to enter either the French market or other European market to develop their activity, and we also offer training programs. Finally, we offer specific data management services. Everything that we are, I would say, developing in terms of knowledge about data management for electric vehicle, we also make it available to our client through our different services. To give you an idea of the scope of data that we are collecting through the platform, I think it can be interesting for you to have some key figures about the number of sessions that are being done, that are being realized through the GIREVE platform. So there are about 45,000 charging points that are connected to GIREVE in France. In total, there are more than 200,000 charging points that are being referenced through the platform, and there are about 400 charging networks open to the public that are connected to GIREVE. So these are millions and millions of sessions that we are seeing transitioning through the platform. and that we can analyze. Because for the sessions that are connected to the platform, for the sessions that are realized on infrastructure stations that are connected to the platform, we can see everything that's going on in the session. So all of this, the power that is being delivered, the time of duration of the session, is the session successful or not, is the session realized by the same users, or are we talking about occasional users? All of these are information that we can use to produce analysis about the market. Same also for the price of the session, the tarification, and so on. We combine to our data analysis knowledge the expertise and information that we can collect through our participation to the mobility ecosystem bodies. So I'm thinking about the OCPI working group, but also the standardization body and the associations such as the GIREVE or AVER. All of these associations to which we are active members. What is very specific about the GIREVE platform is that we are a B2B platform. However, we are directly in contact with all the interaction points of an electric vehicle user, with everything that has to do with the activity of charging an electric vehicle. So we are dealing with the aggregator for everything that has to do with the delivery of the energy to the charging station. We are in contact with the automotive sector as well to analyze the impact of the evolution of the sector on the batteries, on all the IT systems that are allowing the charging activities and so on. But we also have to take into account all the navigation problematics and everything that transit through the mobile apps that the users are using. And finally, we are also interested in looking at everything that has to do with payment and with parking. So all of these topics are areas where we can create value from the data, again, that is being collected and processed through the GIREVE platform. In terms of architecture, the data that we are that is transitioning to the platform belongs to GIREVE, so it's part of our expertise and knowledge, but we can also complete it and complement it and support it with all the open data sources that we can collect about local mobility policies, about all the socio-demographic trends who are going to be the users of electric vehicles in the future, and obviously about the data that has to do with the infrastructures in terms of parking, in terms of street charging, and in terms of electric networks. So now that I've given you some pointers about what is the data that can be collected through a platform like GIREVE and what can we do about it, I propose that we start the workshop. So to start the workshop, I'm going to first give you some perspectives by looking at case studies that we've delivered to two of our clients. So first case study, we were approached by a client to produce an assessment for a deployment plan. So basically, our client is a private deployment company, and their initial question was regarding fast and ultra-fast charging in France. So the client wanted to know if it was worth it to consider deploying a network of fast and ultra-fast charging infrastructure in France. The initial, I would say, thought behind it was that the client has to comply with legal requirements, as there is a law in France which is called the Loi Orientation des Mobilités, which makes it compulsory for actors that have parking sites that they are providing to their clients to equip these parking sites with charging infrastructures. Besides, the client wanted to increase its attractiveness. So the reasoning of the client was that as long as there is an obligation to install electric vehicle charging station, there is maybe an opportunity to use that as an attractivity factor to drain clients to the sites to provide additional services. So the questions that we had to answer to our clients was, do we need fast and ultra-fast charging stations, or is slow charging station okay? If we go for a fast and ultra-fast charging network, how many stations do we need to install? Which is the power that we need to consider? What type of infrastructure will be the more adapted? And which business plan do we need to put in place to be competitive and to follow the market trends? So we analyzed the data that we have on how is the French territory today, the French market covered in terms of fast and ultra-fast charging infrastructure, and how these infrastructures are being used. So how we can compare the usage of the different infrastructures, and do we evaluate that they are a profitable investment, and that the networks are how the networks are being used today. So first we started by where are the stations located? Where can we find today fast and ultra-fast charging infrastructure? How are they used by the EV users? What is the amount that is being invoiced for the charging stations, and what is the power that is being delivered? We produce key indicators in the form of a mapping of the fast and ultra-fast infrastructure, of the distance between each of the existing sites, and we define what would be the most interesting locations to deploy new infrastructure. So basically, what are the needs for this type of infrastructure? We produced a national benchmark, but we also provided some comparisons with other European countries. Some of the European countries are very advanced and are interested in the point of comparison. The conclusion of the study was an analysis to understand the offer that was today available and a support that we provided to the client to draft what we thought would be the optimal deployment plan for fast and ultra-fast charging infrastructures. So this is the first use case of our data to develop EV business. Let's look at a second case study that we have worked on. The second case study that I thought would be interesting to share with you was regarding a network acquisition. So basically, our client wanted to buy a network of charging infrastructure, and what the client wanted to know was, is the network a good network? Is it a good investment? It was important to evaluate the cost of updating some of the infrastructure that we knew were already quite old, and to analyze the potential attractivity of the sites that were already equipped and that the client wanted to buy, to see what were the potential revenues that the client can expect to draw from this investment. So we analyzed the sites based on the dynamic data, so based on the usage data of the station, and we provided a benchmark of similar networks to evaluate if the occupation rate, of the availability rate, of the amount of tarification circulating through the network was actually high, was at the market, or was low. To help the client make his investment decision. So the data that was important for us to look at was really the dynamic data. So when are the stations being used? What is the volume of stations that are transitioning through the charging infrastructure, etc., etc. To conduct the project, we started by looking at the data again. So what we started to do was to evaluate the conformity of the data that we had with the data of the network's previous manager. Once we've done that, we looked at the availability of the sites, and again, we compared with neighboring sites and with similar networks. We also provided a very detailed benchmark of the activity of the French market, mainly to look at seasonality. So if you take the time frame of 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, where are the peak, that was intended to help support a business plan for the client that will be as close as possible to the activity that was anticipated. In terms of key indicators, we looked at availability, we looked at the frequency of breakdowns of the infrastructure, mapping of the site. We also looked at everything that has to do with occupation of the infrastructure. And again, the benchmark elements were quite important. In terms of conclusion of the study, the deliverable to the client were the identification of locations where an update of the infrastructures was needed, and a comparison with what we could observe on the French market to define the best economic model and to secure a revenue perspective for the client to again help the company make an informed investment decision. We have developed our consulting offer around 3 axes. The first one is our deploy program, where we help planning actors, public or private, to develop their charging network. And part of the services that we're providing in this offer, in this program, is to give them as much insight as possible about what we are seeing regarding tarifications. What we are seeing in certain areas for certain collectives on certain territories is that there are at least 7 criteria that are being used to define a price grid. So it's extremely complex. And as you are mentioning, the result is that very often there is no logic between how much kilometers I'm going to be able to charge with that I've just done and the price that I'm going to pay. The second program that we have is the program that we call Expand, which is helping all the actors of the sector, operators or service provider, to grow their market share. And in this part of the program, there are a lot of the consulting services that we are providing to our client that relate precisely to what we are discussing at the moment, where we help our client to define easy and fair tarification grids, where customers know how much they're going to pay and why they're going to pay it. And what we are now mature enough to do is to be able to provide our client visibility on if you build a certain tarification grid based on the needs that you can observe on the infrastructures of your network. This is more or less the business plan that you can build around that. Because as you are saying, we are not in an early adopters market anymore. So actors that have been deploying charging infrastructure without knowing how much they're gonna create as value for their company, they are no longer in this logic. Now they want to know what is the price that I need to apply, how many sessions can I expect to see being done on the charging stations that I'm managing, and based on that, what will be the return on my investment. So this is what GIREVE can do, and this is what we're pushing our clients to look at by saying, okay, there are a lot of things that we are seeing on tariff. If you listen to us, if you take our recommendations into account, there are things that you can do to improve price transparency and to improve also the efficiency, I would say, of the tarification. We are doing a lot of work on price innovation, because indeed, there are things that can be done. There are models that can be explored. I'm thinking about the subscription model. I'm thinking about specific offers that can be designed for specific users, because we are unable to see what are the different profiles of EV users, and based on that, what could be the price offer that could be interesting for them. So all the market is mature enough to start thinking about price innovation, and not only about making charging station infrastructure. And finally, there is a third program that we have developed, which is our Learn program. It's basically our training services. So we provide training services to most of the stakeholders of the ecosystem, be it charging operators or eMobility service providers, or actors of the automotive industry, for example. To conclude the session, I just wanted to share with you how we support our client from the moment that our client connect to our roaming platform. They are supported with our learning programs, with our training programs, and with our consulting services to define the best strategy, again, when it comes to pricing, but also when it comes to deployment and so on. I hope you found this webinar useful. I hope you draw value from the time that we spent together. If you have any question, if you're interested in our services, or if you want to share your views and expertise about our market, we'll be more than happy to continue the conversation. You can contact us at contact@gireve.com, and we'll make sure to answer again questions that you might have, or any conversations that you would like to pursue with GIREVE regarding these different topics. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your participation to the workshop. And again, I hope you got what you were looking for during this session.